Many more leaks, many more specs, Nikon Zf is coming. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thomas Love here from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and today we are discussing these new specs that leak regarding the Nikon Zf. Now, I am not in the rumor business, Nikon rumor is, so I'm using them as a trusted source. And if you put together all the leaks that we had so far about the Nikon Zf, then make it like a very, very interesting camera. I've been telling for weeks that the Nikon Z8 was, in my humble opinion, the release of the year, and now it has been nominated and it has this official title, Camera of the Year 2023, because they were able to take all the capabilities that were the Nikon Z9 and compact it in a smaller body. And so they're doing almost the same thing right here with just minor crippling, taking the specs of the Z8 and putting them all in the Nikon Zf. What it's not to like. So, couple of aspects that I want you to consider that to me are pivotal in order to understand this interesting project. It's not just the retro feeling. It's not just having physical dials to manage the exposure triangle, which is a thing that I love, honestly, because I normally shoot manual, but you might want some help. Everybody has their own preferences, but guys, the 2 points here are: first, the processor. The Nikon Z6 Mark II had two Expeed 6 processors, while this one is gonna have the Expeed 7, which is the same processor that we see in the Nikon Z8 and the Z9. And then together with it, why would they put such a capable and powerful processor? Because it's gonna have the same autofocusing, 3D tracking of the Nikon Z8 with 273 focusing point. And why is it so special for a stills camera? Because it is also capable of shooting videos 4K 30p or 60p with a minor crop. And why this camera is capable of shooting videos? Because it has IBIS in the body, which is the game changer. Nowadays, cameras with no IBIS are just not retro, they're just old, let's face it. I have OIS in my Leica Q2 and I love it for stills, but when it comes down to video, well, you will need IBIS or a gimbal, and I'm too old to start using a gimbal nowadays. And so IBIS, I will only appreciate it. And then the second point that I want you to have a thought on is, guys, we are paying dollars by the pound. We are purchasing cameras by the pound, and with the pound I mean megapixel, because the price per megapixel in the Nikon Zf is comparable to the price per megapixel for the Nikon Z8. So basically the Zf is gonna have 24 megapixel and it costs almost the half of the Z8 that is gonna have the same capabilities but 45 megapixel. Now, what is to be preferred, 24 or 45 megapixel? It really depends on the use you intend to have with your camera. 45 will give you a bit more freedom in cropping, while 24 will give you a bit more freedom in low light situations. And so it really depends. It's a personal preference. I would go for 24 because 24 was the sweet spot till 5 minutes ago, or the full frame cameras, even for professionals, were 24 megapixel, and it was plenty, even if you needed to print big size pictures. And then now, like with BSI stack sensor, 45 megapixel seems to be the average. So Leica adopted 47, Nikon 45, many other brands are 45, and then the pro niche, it's up to 60 megapixel, which we don't need. Similarly to the 8K shooting, which we don't need for videos. But second point here, where I want to hear your thoughts, is they told us that the Nikon Z8 and Z9 didn't need a mechanical shutter anymore because the electronic shutter was the future. Because of this fast processor and the fast scanning, the rolling shutter was minimal, and so we didn't need mechanical shutter anymore. But with the Zf, we still have both. So in my humble opinion, this is a great advantage because you can use mechanical shutter for your stills and be sure that you are not having any rolling shutter. And then if you want to shoot wide open under the sunlight and then you have a fast lens and you want to use it to the fullest, you eventually can do it and switch to the electronic shutter that will give you up to 1/8,000 of a second. And so it's plenty. You have no limitations whatsoever with this camera. This might be your one lens only. Now, I would pair it personally with the 40mm f2 SE version, but also some other Z-mount glasses. And so guys, what it's not to like? For $2,000, you're having a full frame camera with the IBIS, with the same 3D tracking from the Nikon Z8, with 4K recording, with the Z-mount glasses in a retro body, with mechanical dials, with the mechanical shutter. Still, it's a value proposition for Nikon. And they've been sleeping for years, and then as soon as they got phase detect and they released the Z9, well, they came back to the scene, and now it's the Nikon that we loved for decades because they released the Z9, which is probably one of the best pro cameras out there, and then they compacted and put them in a smaller body, which is the Z8, which is now officially the camera of the year 2023. And now they're doing some crippling here and there and putting the Elite technology and whatever we got from a Nikon Z-mount into a smaller and retro body with a Nikon Zf. Now, hold your breath for a minute, sit tight, because I have a couple of thoughts here that I think are pivotal in order to understand this project. The first is that basically the sector is changing and we are now paying X dollar by pound. We're paying cameras by the pound, we're paying cameras by megapixel, because if you go down and do some rough calculation, the price per megapixel in the Zf is comparable to the price per megapixel in the Z8. The Zf is going to have the same Expeed 7 processor and not 2 Expeed 6 like the Nikon Z6 Mark II. So it's going to be faster and it's going to have the same 273 autofocusing and 3D tracking that it is present in the Nikon Z8. So it's almost the same cameras, but with less megapixel. What it's not to like, guys, we're gonna have IBIS, we're gonna have autofocusing, we're gonna have phase detect, we're gonna have low light capabilities, 4K 30p or 4K 60p with a crop, shooting in 422 and log. It's plenty. This is a camera that is supposed to be enjoyed by a lot of people. I'm thinking about travels, but I'm also thinking about professionals who might be willing to have this camera as a second backup body, as a background camera, as a second camera to put aside to your Z8 or Z9. Now sit tight and hold tight, because this is, in my humble opinion, the pivotal point of this camera. You know that they removed the mechanical shutter from the Nikon Z8 and the Z9 because they said the processor was fast enough, because we would have minimal rolling shutters, so on and so forth. But guys, with the Zf, we are back with the hybrid, so you can shoot with a mechanical shutter up to a certain speed and electronic afterwards, meaning you can have the best of the two worlds, the mechanical and the electronic shutter within the same compact body. It's comparable in terms of size to the Sony A7C. And so I think this is gonna be another killer machine, guys. Nikon, they have been sleeping for years while Sony was dominating the scene thanks to the AF tracking, so on and so forth. This alien technology, finally, they got phase detect with the Z9, and then they released the Z8, which is the camera of the year, and now the Z9 can benefit from this kind of motion trap integrated into the camera, so you don't need any more motion trap if you're going out to shoot wildlife, but the camera will detect motion and shoot pictures. And now they're releasing this retro ZF with the best of the modern technology in a retro world with the Z-mount glasses. I can't wait to have it in my hands and to take it out for a spin. So with that, I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, please remember to like it, share it on social media, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the new videos to come, and I guess I will see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.